Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, it's the Laces Out podcast, our NFL podcast. No guest this week, but no guest was required, let's put it that way. We're talking the last of the playoff games and giving a little snippet, a little insight into what the Super Bowl might be, but not fully just yet. Stay tuned to see what I mean about that. Before we get started, please do consider like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave a review where you can leave a review. Share the podcast around is the big one. If you've got an NFL fan in your life, send them this podcast. They will thank you for it. Right, let's get started. Here we go. This is CookieCast. Laces Out.
Allegedly, recording's in progress. I can see the dot thing doing the thing. Only two people. Now, normally, that would mean that I didn't do my job and get a guest. And that's exactly what it means this week. Sort of. Because I didn't do my job and get a guest. But we don't really need one this week. And we'll get onto that in a minute. Probably should tell you where we are and what we're doing. This is CookieCast. This is the Laces Out podcast, our NFL podcast, a sport that is very rarely played in this country. I am one of the hosts, and my glamorous co-host, Mr. Paul Williams, is here. How are you, sir?
Sir, am very well. How are you?
I have waited for 3 whole days to say this. There we go, ladies and gentlemen. We got the Super Bowl that nobody wanted, yet we all secretly knew we were getting. Spoilers. Anyway, we'll...
This is where I have to disagree.
That's why I waited 3 days, because I was like, I'm going to send a message and say that, and Paul's immediate response will be, I disagree with that.
So, obviously, in my personal opinion, the absolute nightmare bowl, as it were, would have been the Baltimore Ravens versus the San Francisco 49ers, as I would have been in the unenviable position of being rooting for nobody.
Which team do I want to lose more? Or which
Yeah,
team do I want to win less?
Which team do I want to win less? Yeah, it's that sort of... It keeps coming up in interviews when people say... So, in the football, people get interviewed and they say, like, for say, like, a Manchester United player, who do you hate more, Liverpool or Man City? Or which one would you like to see? Which one do you want to see? In fact, it got asked as a question to Gary Neville, and it was a case of, who do you want to see win the Premier League title, Man City or Liverpool? And he said, honestly, that's like asking who I want to, see have a go on my missus. Like, this guy or this guy, and it's like there's no good answer there.
Yeah, there's no preferable answer on that one, I'm afraid.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think we covered it. To be honest, we covered it last week. Massive spoiler and massive sort of flash forward. I believe the phrase I used last week was, count out Patrick Mahomes at your peril. And then I proceeded to count out Patrick Mahomes. So,
I mean, I don't want to be the I told you so guy. And I'm not saying I told you so. What I'm saying is, for the last few weeks, I have just been like, I don't care who the other team is. There are 2 things you can't count out. Number 1 is Patrick Mahomes, and number 2 is the Chiefs. What I will say is this. The Chiefs' defense in that Ravens game, it was like they were somehow allowed to have twice as many players. There was a point where they showed a more aerial view of that game, and they highlighted where all the defensive players were for the Chiefs to just show how the Ravens had zero options at the point in time that they had the ball. They were like, so you've got defense here, 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 here. And Lamar is here going this way, and there is nothing. That Chiefs defense was insane in that game. However, once we jump over to the other game and look at the 49ers defense, I like every Super Bowl probably since the dawn of time, it's going to come down to who's got the best defense. But anyway, that is jumping ahead. Yeah. Patrick Mahomes. There was a point in that 49ers Lions game where I was actually like, oh my word, we're going to see the Lions in the Super Bowl. I can't believe it. This is amazing. I'm, you know, all through certainly through the last few weeks, through the season at various points, it's been like, good on the Lions. They're doing really well. They're really, they are absolutely a team that has turned it around. And to get as far as they got, again, small amount of spoilers there. Absolutely fantastic, amazing work, brilliant. And in that game, it was like, it's happening. It's happening. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. They're going to go. They're going to do it.
No, I know what you mean, and obviously, like at different points, I felt the same and was very much pulling for that. Yeah, didn't really pan out that way, did it? To be honest with you,
it didn't, and it's one of those things, week in, week out, I'm sitting here going, I love a conspiracy, mate. I truly believe that the Lions played amazing in that game to a point. I feel they came up against a team that's, like I've said before, gone into the locker room, been slapped by their coach and sent back out on the field with the instruction of, do not come back in this locker room unless you win that game, sort of situation. And, the second half of that game, it was a different story, unfortunately, for the Lions. I think the last few years have been an example for me of when it gets to this point of the season, which is essentially the last part of the season, I think I just want to see something different. I think I just want to be, people are putting the Chiefs in the same sentence as the Patriots. That's understandable. You can completely see why that is. You agree with it. I've said a few things about, you disliked the Patriots because they won. Now that's maybe not the right reason, but I think we can all agree that back at that point in time, it just got to the point of like, oh, look, the Patriots are in the Super Bowl. I wonder if they're going to win. Oh, look, they won more than they lost kind of situation. And we're putting the Chiefs in the same sentence. But I was saying, like, the difference between the two teams is that it was just that, you've got to deal with watching Brady to Gronk X number of times through the game. That's the worst you're going to have to put up with. Whereas when you're talking about the Chiefs, it's just that catalogue of things that go with it. The off the field stuff, maybe up in the box area stuff. Now, I will say this. I watched a video earlier from Colin Cowhead, is it? And he did a thing about the whole. I know we're going to cover it. He did a thing about the whole Taylor Swift thing. The video was about nearly 4 minutes, and he started out, and it was very much everybody's annoyed that Taylor Swift's going to be there, and they've done this whole thing about how she's going to be in Tokyo the day before, but she could fly back and blah blah blah. And then went on to break down things like exactly how much football is ever shown on TV. 18 minutes, apparently, of actual football shown during a game on average. Then looked at over these games how much Taylor Swift was on the screen, and I think the shortest was something like 13 seconds over the entire game. And people like bitch moaning and complaining about how it's stuff like this that's ruining the sport. Now, I will hold my hand up and say, count me in that crowd. And then the video took a bit of a turn about it's not what's wrong with the sport and it's not what's wrong with the pop star. It's what's wrong with you. And as the video went on, I was a bit like, the point in time where the phrase was, has never had a meaningful relationship with a member of the opposite sex. I was like, Jesus. And it was like 50%. I'm like, the science involved in this video is immense, and I feel triggered and victimized all at the same time. It was quite an interesting video to watch because it started out with like, oh, we're all annoyed that Taylor Swift's going to be there. And by the end of it, you were like, how do I get that online therapy again? Because I feel like I've had a Swift kick to the skull. But what I will say is this: it's made me change my opinion, and I no longer want to bitch, moan, and complain about pop stars at football games. Anyway, that was a long tirade about how the Super Bowl is maybe not the one I would have picked. I think I'd have liked just something different. And I know you were saying for you, the Ravens versus the 49ers would be the worst scenario that was left. I think, and I know last week we discussed the possibility of the Ravens-Lions Super Bowl. I think if I'm honest, of what was left, of the 4 teams that were left, I think that's what I wanted the Super Bowl to be. Ravens versus the Lions in a situation where, you know, first time for the Lions going to the dance would have been like a big thing, and just a different team on the other side. Just, it's not the Patriots, it's not the Chiefs, it's not. Yeah. Anyway, let's break down the games that I've ruined already.
Well, no, I wouldn't say that you've ruined them by any sort of stretch of the imagination. So obviously there was only 2 games, as we've discussed. The first of which was the Kansas City Chiefs at the Baltimore Ravens. Myself and Leanne had both picked the Ravens in this one. Andy was the only sensible person in the room and had picked the Chiefs. So Andy's the only person who gets a point from that particular game. The Lions 49ers. I was the only person who tipped the Lions. So Andy and Leanne both get a point for the 49ers in that. Which meant that Andy got the clean sweep of 2 from 2. So got the point for the week. Moving himself on to 8.5 points in the weekly picks. Moving himself half a point clear of the guest. I'm languishing on 5 points, which means it's between Andy and the guest when we go into Super Bowl Sunday in a couple of weeks' time to determine who will be the weekly picks champion, as it were. Also on the side bet, we've done the thing that we'd done the week before, where we both took our own picks as our side bet. Obviously, with me losing both my picks, that leaves me on 54. Andy increases his score to 50, so he's only 4 points behind. So unless we get very creative with some side bet stuff next week, we can try and come up with 5 50-50 side bet things that we can try and do to make the Super Bowl a bit more interesting.
I mean, it's one of those things. Like I said last week, I think we both had a good season, and it was close. Certainly not as close as last season, but I think it was still close enough to say that there was no clear out and out winner. Although I don't think there was a point in the season where you were losing. So realistically, you've won every week for 20 something weeks. But I don't want to be the guy who's like, I like it. But I kind of like it as a concept. It's just a little bit. It is very much a side bet situation. It is a little bit of fun. I think we can still look at doing stuff for the Super Bowl. I like a little flutter for the Super Bowl. I will say this. I met a friend of mine on Saturday for coffee, which I'm not a big coffee drinker myself personally, but just a little visual humour there for the audio listeners. Anyway, I met a friend for coffee, and I said to my friend, bear in mind this was Saturday, the weekend games were still to play. I said to him, do you remember when we sat in this very establishment and I said to you, take 50p and put it on the San Francisco 49ers to win the Super Bowl? He was like, like, yeah, depending how the outcome of tomorrow's games go, the 49ers might be going to the Super Bowl. I then attempted to Google what the odds were at that time, but the establishment we were in has very poor reception, so I couldn't find out. But I was a bit like, I did try to tell you. Now, as for winning the Super Bowl, but yeah, go into the dance. Sorry, yes, go on.
That was basically it for our picks and side bet and things like that. Obviously, from the season-long perspective, everyone that was still in with a shot last week technically is still correct at this point. So we established that you would pick the Chiefs to go all the way. Matt had picked the 49ers to go all the way. Mark had picked the 49ers to go all the way. And James had picked the Chiefs to go all the way. So all of those people are still technically in with the chance of getting their pick correct. However, Stu Woodmansey was the only person who picked the Chiefs 49ers Super Bowl. So from a if we were doing like a winner's perspective from that, obviously Stu gets the point in the fact that he was the only one who correctly predicted the entire matchup.
Absolutely.
So as it stands, you've gone for the Chiefs to win with Mahomes to get the MVP. Matt's gone with the 49ers to win and Joey Bosa to get the MVP. Stu has the San Francisco 49ers to win with Christian McCaffrey to get the MVP, as does Mark. But James Forrester Gray has gone with the San Francisco 49ers and Brock Purdy to the game MVP. James had picked the Chiefs to get to the Super Bowl, but had picked them to go up against the Philadelphia Eagles and had picked Jalen Hurts as the Super Bowl MVP. So obviously can't get any more points as that obviously isn't happening. So there isn't really anything more to cover from like a sort of a picks perspective. I do understand though. We do have some stats from the championship round of games that we can go through, which may give us a bit more of an insight into sort of what went down in Baltimore and the San Francisco Bay Area over the course of Sunday.
Yes, I had a textual message today that went along the lines of, "You doing NFL this evening?" Right, I certainly am. Let's do some stats then. So I can't confirm the stats have been delivered by Nate Davis of USA Today, but as he is normally involved, I'm going to have to say credit there. And then from our perspective, our stats correspondent, the stats mistress, has brought the stats to us. These are for, again, I can't tell you how these are categorized. I've got NFL stats, so stats for the entire NFL. There's quite a few. Some of them are juicy. Let's get amongst it. Number one, Super Bowl 58 will be the 9th rematch in the history of the game, set to occur 4 years after the Kansas City Chiefs and San Francisco 49ers clashed in Super Bowl 54. Number two, and while NFL teams change significantly over any 4-year period, Kansas City Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes, tight end Travis Kelce, and DT Chris Jones, and Niners tight end George Kittle, DE Nick Bosa, and wide receiver Deebo Samuel are among the leading lights who also appeared in Kansas City 31-20 victory at Miami's Hard Rock Stadium to cap the 2019 season. Number three, one more win and the 49ers will join New England and Pittsburgh as the only franchises with 6 Lombardi trophies. One more win and the Chiefs will become the first team to win back-to-back Super Bowls since the 2003 and 2004 Patriots. Number four, the Chiefs are only the 3rd team to reach the Super Bowl 4 times in a 5-year period, previously matched by the Bills and the Patriots. Number 5, Sunday was the first AFC title game not played at Kansas City's Arrowhead Stadium in 6 years. It was also the first to be played in Baltimore in 53 years. Number 6, Sunday was Reed's 11th conference championship game appearance. Only Belichick has more with 13. My final stat for this week is number 7. Reed next heads to his 5th Super Bowl, joining Belichick 9 and Hall of Famers Don Shula 6 and Landry 5 as the only head coaches to achieve that. Over to you for more stats.
Thank you very much. So leading on with the sort of the Super Bowl stats, Patrick Mahomes, 28. He's set to become the first quarterback to start 4 Super Bowls before the age of 30.
Wow.
He's also the first to play in 6 consecutive postseason games without throwing an interception. The Ravens managed only 81 rushing yards on Sunday, the only time all season the NFL's top-ranked ground attack failed to produce at least 100 yards. Baltimore running backs only received 6 carries against Kansas City. That is absolutely ridiculous.
Mental.
Sunday's highlight had to be Baltimore quarterback Lamar Jackson's 13-yard pass and catch, the longest postseason completion by a player to himself in the Super Bowl era. Now, if that's not an American stat, I don't know what is.
two things. One, it's got to go down as like a legendary play. And two, the speed at which somebody managed to get onto the internet, the Mr. Perfect throwing a touchdown pass to himself video in comparison, I was just like, that's fast. It was literally like, wow, oh look. Like, oh my God, that was amazing. Look. Brilliant.
You love to see it. Jackson, who ran the ball a team-high 8 times for just 54 yards, joined Steve Young, Josh Allen, Russell Wilson, and Colin Kaepernick as the only quarterbacks to rush for at least 500 career yards in the postseason. 49ers QB Brock Purdy will try and match Ben Roethlisberger as the only players in history to win a Super Bowl and play in 2 conference championship games in their first 2 seasons. Whether it be an extra point or a field goal try, Niners rookie Jake Moody has now missed a kick in 3 consecutive games. Not really what you want to be looking at when we're getting into the postseason. Huh?
No.
2 more for me before we're finished. The Lions remain one of 4 NFL teams to never reach the Super Bowl. They're the only team in the league that's failed to get there despite being in operation for the entirety of the game's existence. The other Super Sundayless squads are Cleveland Browns from 1995, the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jacksonville Jaguars from 1995, the Cleveland Browns from 1999, and the Houston Texans from 2002. Those are obviously the years that those particular franchises either were born or came back into the league. And as we reach the end, Ravens wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr. says he has not. He caught 3 balls for 22 yards on Sunday, which may have been his last in a Ravens uniform. However, OBJ said in the locker room afterwards that he plans to continue his career and hopes that Baltimore will re-sign him. That's all the stats.
Sure is.
I suppose it's a bit of a strange podcast because obviously this is the point of the podcast where we dive straight into the next week's games. But as we discussed on last week's podcast, the next week's games are the Pro Bowl games, which, as stated, we want absolutely zero part of. So, like I said last week, to be fair, the format of the Pro Bowl changing has made it somewhat better to watch. I'm not going to lie. But it's not the sort of thing that you feel like you must watch live. Let's put it that way.
No. I mean, we discussed it last week, didn't we? I said there were years in the past where I remember one year getting really excited for the Pro. I think it was the first time I sat down. I was like, I'm going to watch the Pro Bowl. It's going to be amazing. I regretted every decision I'd ever made in my entire life at that point, and I'd considered pulling my own eyes out. So, yeah, this is the point where we'd normally be predicting games, doing side bets, etc. The game is the Pro Bowl. We're not concerned about that. So we will reconvene the week before, but next week. One of us has already put legwork in to get a collection of guests. So look out for that. Look forward to that. And as we know, there's a football game going on. That's in some ways the big part of the day. But for us here at the Laces Out podcast, that's only part of it. Realistically, we know what everybody wants to know. We know why everyone tunes in. They stick with us week in, week out, every season for this moment, the big moment, the moment where we find out what everyone's eating for the Super Bowl. And this year, whew, the planning, the scientific formulas that are currently in play to get us to that day so that we can maximize, and I do mean maximize, our just sheer joy. All I know is that the snack helmet will be brought out of storage, shall we say, freshly cleaned down, freshly stocked, and put out for everybody to use. What goes in that snack helmet? Join us next week to find out. Mr. Williams, anything else on the cards before we let these people go?
Not really. Obviously, it was just the case of, I didn't get what I wanted. You didn't get what you wanted, but I'm sure somewhere out there, there's a lot of people that are incredibly happy and very much looking forward to the Chiefs 49ers Super Bowl once again. And obviously, I'll watch the game. I'll still enjoy it as long as a certain team doesn't win. But we'll get into all of that talk next week. So we'll save those particular gems for next week's podcast. I'll say.
I honestly, it's gonna be a highlight of my season, listening to you try and keep it reined in, keeping a level of professionalism to say, you know, I feel that it'd be better for everybody involved if the Chiefs could do us all a favor.
I don't know what you could possibly.
I'm sure you don't. I have my own opinions on the whole situation. So yeah, there's plenty to come back for. Let's put it that way. It's probably going to be quite a bumper episode edition podcast. And yeah, like I say, guests galore, glorious. Right, if that's everything from you, it's certainly everything from me, and it's absolutely everything from that guy there. He didn't even want to come on the camera. He was like, "Nah, I'm keeping my powder dry." So there we go. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for watching, listening, and being a part of what has been the 2023-24 season. All that's left is the big one. So come back and hear what we think is going to go down. Find out where our all-pound coins are going in the betting system, and find out what is the best dip. Let's face it, that's the one we really want to know. Until then, it's bye from me. It's absolutely bye from him, and we shall see you in a week's time. Tatty byes.
So there we go. What do you think of that? Another one done. Another one gone. That's the end of the season as a whole. All that's left is the Super Bowl. Join us next week as we talk about the Super Bowl. Before you go, please don't forget to like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave reviews where you can leave reviews. Check out the website, thecookiecast.com. Over there we've got social media links and an email button, and that way you can get in touch with us. That's it for this one. Until next time, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then.
This has been another episode of CookieCast. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share and subscribe.